Okay, Stony Creek by Xavier Rudd. What a fantastic song, and what a riff that is. Going to have a lot of fun this week. Thank you to everyone who's left comments on the acoustic vault cover we did with this over on our other YouTube page with Eleanor. The main comment has been, please can you do a guitar tutorial on this? So here it is. I have got to say I've been putting it off a little bit because I know it's going to be a bit of a tricky one this, but we can cope with it. I have fully transcribed this. There is a link to a free PDF chart in the description below, so go ahead and get that downloaded, get it on your iPad, or even print it if you're old school. Let's start by getting our guitar in tune. So this is in the equivalent of drop D tuning, but then everything is shifted down a semitone. So that's D flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B flat, and E flat. Those tuning notes are also on the chart. Let's talk about tone. I've got some mics here. You can hear the reverb and delays and the Stompbox. I'm going to take that all off. We're going to just go with a dry sound for this tutorial. And then at the end of the lesson, I'll talk about the effects that I'm using in the Stompbox and some extra little bits and pieces. So let's have some fun and let's get straight into this one. Okay, so this song starts with this gorgeous intro section. This is arpeggiated picked pattern with these beautiful reverbs and delays underneath it. Really atmospheric. Let's start by having a listen to that and then we'll break it down. I am going to be reading from the chart, so I apologise for looking away from the camera at points. Okay, so working through this intro, the best way to do this is for me to play each line really, really slowly and then break out any key points from that line. It'd get a little bit tedious and a bit fiddly to explain this note by note. So we'll keep it slow, so pull up the tab. Again, link in the description to the free tabs below. Let's take it line by line. Let's start with the first line. So here it is really slowly. Okay, so key points. My first finger is playing the third of the chord, which is F sharp. That's on the 3rd fret on the 11th fret. My second finger is playing the root note of the chord. That's the note D. That's on the 12th fret on the 4th string. And I'm also playing the open D, so that's the octave of that root, an octave down. They're the 3 notes that I'm playing. This is a picked pattern. My thumb is taking care of the bass note. My first finger is taking care of the 4th string, and my second finger is taking care of the 3rd string. On occasions, we'll hit notes at the same time, and sometimes we'll just be arpeggiating them individually. And you'll notice that at the end of measures 2 and 4 that we change the bass to an open A as opposed to an open D. So it gives some movement in the bass, so that's quite important to pick up on. Okay, let's take a listen to the second line really slowly, which starts at bar number 5. Okay, so things to pick up on here. We start to introduce this melody line. So it's very similar to the first 4 bars, but with this melody line that's introduced. Anybody that looked at my Mr. Brightside tutorial will see a lot of similarities here in what's going on. This melody line works from the 14th fret on the 3rd string, that's the note A, down to the 12th fret on the 3rd string, that's the note G, and then our first finger back on the F sharp on the 11th fret on the 3rd string, that's the last note of the melody. And that melody line works in around our arpeggiated pattern. The only other thing to pick up on, again, we have that open A string in the 3rd measure. It's actually the 7th measure because we're on the 2nd line, so the 7th measure would be technically correct. So it's important to bring that in and yeah, just practice that. And again, just trying to get all those notes to ring through really clearly. So you want to be playing on the fingertips throughout all of this. Okay, so let's take a listen to line number 3, which is starting from bar 9. So here it is really slowly. Okay, so things to pick up on here. We have shifted position. We're now down at the 9th fret and we're playing this bar. And we need to play this bar, so we've got to apply a little bit of pressure here because we need the 6th string and the 3rd and the 4th string from this bar. Okay, and then the melody line is working up from 9 up to 11 and up to 12, but around this bar shape. So we've got 11, 12, back to 11. And then we shift position again, so then we take this whole position down 2 frets. And we take our finger off to end up with just a bar at the end. Okay, so again, really slowly. 11, 12, 11, slide down. Finger off to 7. Okay, so let's listen from bar number 13. This is line 4 on the chart. Here it is really slowly. Okay, so key points here. The melody line now moves to the D string. Okay, and we also switch to the open A string when we play that melody line. And then back into the open D string, and then back to the open A string for the melody line. So we're switching that bass note up a little bit there. Okay, and then that moves down into the last line, the 5th line, which starts on bar number 17, and we're back down here with our bar at the 9th fret. Let me play it again for you nice and slowly. Okay, so this time we're only using the bass strings. So as opposed to the first time we went down to the 9th fret when we were playing the 3rd string and the bass note 6th string, we're now playing the 4th string and the 6th string together. And we're playing this pattern again. We're going to bar across the 9th fret up to the 11, but on the 4th string this time. 12, back to 11. Slide that whole thing down 2 frets and pull off to 7. It's actually 2 hits, it's not a pull off. So 9, 7, 7, 9, 7, 7, 7. So it's a little bit confusing when you set all the numbers like that, but it makes sense when you're looking at the tabs. So we've got through that intro section, and let's not forget the dog bark. And now we're into this main riff, this iconic riff that we all want to learn. This is our favourite bit, right? So I've got good news and I've got bad news here. The bad news is that this is not the easiest guitar part to learn. There's a lot happening here in the riff, and it's going to take you a bit of practice to get this under your fingers. The good news, however, is that this works around an 8-bar repeating pattern. And once we've got that 8-bar pattern down, pretty much that's the whole song taken care of, with a few variations here and there, which we'll look at individually. The easiest way for me to do this is to play it for you at full speed and then to break it down bar by bar for the first 8 bars, and then to go through the piece and just talk about the slight variations that happen as and when they happen. Okay, here it is at full speed. Okay, so let's take this intro bar by bar. We're going to start off at bar 21, which is at the top of page 2. I'm going to break this down over the first 8 bars. Okay, here it is slowly. Okay, let's go even slower. Okay, a couple of things to talk about here. Firstly, this works around our D major pentatonic shape, which is that classic box shape. So these notes here are all coming from that scale shape. So you can visualize that around that scale shape. That's that minor pentatonic shape, but it's actually a major pentatonic. Again, I'm not going to get bogged down in the theory here, but a minor pentatonic box shape starting from the 7th fret. That will guide you around some of these notes that we're playing around that box shape. Secondly, I've spent a lot of time watching Xavier play this on YouTube videos and listening to the original record. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what's happening because there's lots of delays and effects and there's an octave part going on and stuff. So it's hard to hear, is that the delay playing a part or is he playing a part? A little bit easier sometimes when I'm watching him play it live and watching his fingers, but still hard to get it exactly right. So this is pretty close, but it might not be 100% right, but it's certainly how I play it and it will certainly get you in the ballpark. So again, we got this octave D, so open 4th string and the open 6th string, followed by the open A. So slap down, and then we're going to play these notes. So we've got the little ghost note, and then we're going to play 7, 9, 7, and that's like where that comes from, that minor pentatonic scale shape. So really slowly again. Okay, let's have a look at the second bar. So this bar starts off in pretty much the same way. Octave D followed by the A and then the slap down on the string. We then also have the ghost note, but the ghost note I'm playing slightly differently because I'm playing it on the 5th string with my thumb. I'm avoiding the 7th fret when I mute strings, by the way, because there's a harmonic here and we don't want that as the ghost note. So I'm putting it on the 8th fret with my 2nd finger because that means that my whole position is sitting quite nicely. My 2nd finger is naturally sitting around that 8th fret in this position. So, and then that's followed by our hammer on from the 7th up to the 9th. Again, that's from that pentatonic scale shape. And then run down. So 7 to 9 hammer on, back down to 7, 9 on the 5th string, 7 on the 5th string, and then open D to end. Okay, really slowly. You can see I'm using a combination of my thumb and my 1st finger when I play this. I think sometimes Xavier uses his 3rd finger as well, but it's whatever fits for you really. The main thing is trying to fill those subdivisions so you can get the groove. Okay, I'm now going to cover bars 23 and 24 together because they're both quite similar. What's happening here, we're taking a bar across the 9th fret. We actually only need the bass strings. You can bar all the strings though. So we're only working around strings 6, 5 and 4. And we're going to do that same pattern that we had on the first 2 bars, but this time obviously with the bar, that means we're playing the 9th fret octaves, followed by the open, not the open A, the fretted A string, because that's fretted by the bar. And this time, instead of the ghost note, I'm going to replay the bass note. And I'm going to immediately follow that up with an 11, the note here, on the 4th string. And then that's going to be followed by this pull off from my little finger on the 12th to the 11, and then the 11 to the 9. And on both of those, I'm going to play the bass note. So now it's a little bit vague here when you listen to the record because it sounds to me like the bass is actually moving with it. But I think what's happening is that there's an octave pedal or some octave effect that's playing the octave down on this melody, which sounds like it's going. Because when I watch Xavier play it live, he's definitely keeping his finger barred here, so he's not playing this bass note. So we're going to do the same thing. Okay? Second time we do the same thing again. But then when we get to the 11 here, we re-hit and slide off. And that slides into the next position. Okay, let's take a look at bars 25 and 26 because they're both very similar. So we're coming out of bar 24 with that slide. We end up here on the 5th fret with a bar across the bass string, so it's 6, 5 and 4. And then we're going to play that octave pattern, again the strings 4 and 6. This time instead of playing the 5th string, we're going to play the 7th fret on the 4th string, followed by our slap. And then immediately after the slap, we play the bass note again on the 5th fret, which is already, because we can keep that bar there. Then we have to grab our 9th fret on the 4th string with our little finger. So then we're going to play this pull off to the 7. So it's the little finger. It requires a bit of strength to do pull offs with your little finger. So we're going to pull off to the 7th fret from the 9. Then we're going to do take everything off and then re-hammer on to the 7. So 9 pull off to 7. Then take your finger off and 5 hammer on to 7. And you can play the bass note with those as well. So then we repeat that whole thing up a tone on the 7th and the 9th fret. Okay, and we're going to complete the 8-bar cycle pretty much as we began. We're back on the open Ds with the open A and the slap, little ghost note, hammer on from 7 to 9, 7 on the 4th fret, back to 9, and then we're going to finish it with this short and sharp stab on the octaves, on the octave Ds. And on the record, when he hits those octaves and it's short and sharp, you'll hear the delays. That's how you know there's delays happening, or that's one of the ways we know that delays are happening on this recording. Okay, so that's the 8-bar cycle. Now let's go through and look at some of the variations that happen and where they happen. Okay, so the first variations happen on the first bar of the 8-bar loop. On occasions, it's played slightly differently. We have the opening riff, which we just learned, but sometimes it's replaced with this. So instead of ending on the 7, we're doing a double hit on the 7. Really straightforward. There's also, so this time we're going to end up back on the 9th fret on the 5th string. Okay, so there's just some variations that happen. Now, if you look at the tab, the sheet music, you'll see where those variations happen, but you could throw them in whenever you want. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as per the record. Now, for that opening 8 bars that we just looked at, we ended on the stab. And that stab happens a couple of times in the song, usually at the end of a section. There's a bit of a dynamic shift. It's quite nice. But when that stab doesn't happen, we end up with the riff, which is exactly the same as the 2nd bar that we looked at. So if you look at measures 22, that bar there is usually played at the end of sections when it isn't the stab. So we've got to take a look at this solo section. It's a little bit tricky, this part. So we start off in the same way that we do with all of the riffs, with the open Ds. But then we're going to move up here to the 11th and 12th. We're going to hammer on the D string from 11 to 12. I'm going to use my 1st to my 2nd finger. I'm going to use my thumb for this. So, got a little ghost note just before it, and I'm doing an up pluck on the 3rd string, because that means it's just below for my thumb to jump in on that 4th string. Okay, and then we're going to go down to do another hammer on 7 to 9. There's a little ghost note in between those as well. Okay, so from the top. That all works around our pentatonic shape. And this time we don't end on the open D, but we finish on the D on the 5th fret on the 5th string. Let's play that really slowly. And again. One more. Really cool, and when you get that auto wah and filter sound in there as well, it's really funky sounding. Once we've got through that little bit, it's just continuing on the same as the normal 8-bar loop. Okay, so the final piece of the puzzle is this bridge section. Sounds like this. Okay, so you'll notice that the last 2 bars of that are already the same as our opening riff. So it's just the first 2 bars we need to learn, and it plays it round 3 times. So we're down here at the 5th fret with a bar. We only need the 6th, 5th and the 4th string. We have this. And then we move up to the 7th fret, so we slide that bar up into the and it does that again. The second time, it goes up to the 9 on the 7. So in the first time when we get to the 7, it's just holding all 7s. On the second time, it goes up to the 9. And then we go round it back to that. And then the third time we do it, it's the same as the first time. With a stop at the end. So once we get through that bridge section, we're back into our 8-bar loop for the final chorus, and that sees the song out. So now let's talk about the effects and the Stompbox and some extra little bits and pieces that can enhance this song. Okay, let's talk a little bit about effects and stuff. So it's hard to know exactly what Xavier uses, but I believe he uses a spring reverb. You can't quote me on this 100%. I've tried doing some research. There's not a huge amount out there, but I have seen a spring reverb on his pedal, and I have seen a few interviews where he talks about using spring reverbs, particularly some vintage style ones. So I'm using this Boss digital reverb, which has a spring reverb setting on it. Now I have also got a Strymon reverb back here somewhere. There's a couple of other reverbs I can use, but I've had this for so long and it's never lets me down, this pedal. These Boss pedals are fantastic. I love the sound of them. This spring reverb works a treat for me. So that's what I'm using for reverb on the spring reverb setting. When we get into that solo and we've got that filter sound, I'm using the Strymon Mobius pedal. This is a sort of modulation pedal and it has a filter setting on it. So I dial in the parameters accordingly and it just gives me a sweep, almost like an auto wah, with a filter sweeping backwards and forwards, which I kick in the solo, and that gives me that sound during the solo. I'm also using, and I don't have an octave pedal here, so I've just used it in Pro Tools, but an octave pedal, so I'm putting everything down 1 octave and then just blending the wet-dry balance so that it's not too in your face, so that the balance of it is just right and it's taking up that low end. I'm doing that in Pro Tools just with an octave plugin. Then when it comes to the Stompbox, I'm using this. This is a Logarithm Stompbox. It's relatively inexpensive. It's just basically a bit of wood with a pickup on it, and it has a DI out. So that goes straight in. I use some EQ on it. I tend to take a bit of the high end off, keep the low end so I get a nice warm sort of low end punch to it. And it's really good practice actually. If you've not tried playing with a Stompbox before, I really recommend it because it really works your coordination and your internal sort of timing and stuff. So yeah, great practice and really good fun as well. Those effects, I should just point out that I use the reverb and the modulation are going through the DI on my guitar. So I have got 2 microphones here which are picking up the actual guitar sound. That's what you heard for the majority of this tutorial. But then at any point where I had the effects on, those effects are on the DI channel, not on the microphone. So the microphones are kept dry, just picking up the sound, and then I'm using all the reverbs and modulations on the DI channel. And that's it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one. Keep practicing it. I know it's a little bit of a tricky one. Please do like and subscribe. It means the world to see the subscribers going up. It really makes these lessons worthwhile. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And always feel free to comment and let me know any songs you might want me to do in the future. Thank you.